Welcome to Hockey Nights in Vegas. My name is Eddie Rivkin. I am joined by the next general manager of one of the Canadian Football Leagues, nicknamed the Rough Riders. I don't know exactly which one because I'm not sure which two it is. Sarina Taylor, ladies and gentlemen. This is the playoff preview episode, and we have an incredible special guest for you. You'll get a chance to see his picture on the screen, but you'll only get to hear his voice. The voice of ESPN Hockey, John Buccigross, has joined us. John, thank you so much for doing this.
You bet. My pleasure. Love the playoffs. Finally here.
It's been a long road. We know we don't got a long time. You got to get on TV here pretty soon. So we're going to just talk about the playoffs. Let's start with the four matchups in the East, since we at least know who those are.
Right.
The surprise of the league: the Buffalo Sabres versus the Boston Bruins. Do you think Buffalo, with all their even with their lack of experience, do you think they've got a run in them, John?
Yeah, that's the concern for sure. First time around for a lot of these guys can be different. You know, the Bruins are going to play a certain way. They're probably going to try to muck it up, try to get them off their game, be very physical. Jeremy Swayman has experience. David Pastrnak has experience. Charlie McAvoy. So they're going to lean on that. Buffalo certainly has more firepower, more offense. But, they have a multiple goalie situation, so you never know what could happen there for sure. Do they stick with the guy? Do they change it up? So kind of all those questions, for the coaching staff, who can we depend on? I still like Buffalo. I think they'll still have enough offensive chances that just probability-wise, you got to like them a little bit. But I do think Swayman can probably steal 2 games. Can he steal 4 for the Bruins? It's possible. But I'll give him 2 steals, and I'll give, Buffalo a slight edge to win that series, I think.
Love that. Going into Tampa and Montreal, I think this is going to be the most exciting series in the East because I think there's a lot at stake for both of these teams. Who do you have in Tampa and Montreal?
Yeah, looking forward to that. I'm doing game 2 of that series, so I'm really looking forward to that on Tuesday. So I'll be in Tampa for that one. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be really an electric series. Again, a young Canadian team. At least they did get a taste last year that dipped their toe in the waters with some of their young players. Tampa hasn't won a playoff series since they lost in the Stanley Cup Finals to Colorado in 2022. So that's a long time. Nikita Kucherov has had a hard time scoring goals in the playoffs. His last 17 games, he has 1 goal. So they need him to score goals. So I think there's kind of a desperation mode in Tampa Bay's entire organization from top to bottom. Like, hey, we need to win a playoff series at least at some point. It's been, 4 years now. Since we last won a playoff series. So it's, Montreal's very good. They're electric. They have a certain swagger about them too, which is kind of fun. But again, a little bit of a question in net. They've gone to 3 different goalies this year. So again, just because Tampa has the experience, and I just think desperation wise, it's like time for them to win another series. I think they're really going to empty the tank here. I think Kucherov's going to attack and try to score, and I'll give Tampa Bay a slight edge in that one. Although a lot of people are really on the Montreal bandwagon, but I'm gonna go with the Lightning here.
It seems like Montreal is sort of playing with house money. They've got 100-point scores. They got a 50-goal score. But do you think this really comes down to which of the 3-headed goalie monster Montreal? I mean, you got to think it's probably Fowler's net to start, right? And he's going to have to really carry the water for them if they're going to get past Tampa, don't you think?
Yeah, and that's going to be tough. That's a lot to ask for a young goalie, and especially their power play is so good. So Montreal needs to stay out of the penalty box. If they can stay out of the penalty box and just give them 1 or 2 power plays a game, then maybe they can survive. But we'll see, because if it's going to be a 5-on-5 game, if the officials let things go, which they sometimes do, then it could be tough for them to try to grind out a 5-on-5 playoff style win for them. This is usually it's very different hockey. Now, sometimes they'll come out with so much adrenaline. These first few games of the round 1 are like the best hockey because everyone is just going 10 out of 10 intensity. If that's the case, that's probably what Montreal wants. Then they can probably go up and down with their speed and maybe overwhelm Tampa. But yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people are thinking, and that could happen. But there's still something about the Lightning. I think their desperation to win a playoff series, I'm going to lean on.
I agree. And I think with Vasilevsky, we got to talk about the fact that he's a grizzled vet that could go one of 2 ways. When he's facing Caulfield and Suzuki and even Slafkovsky up there, it's going to be a little different. I think this year it's going to make or break, I think, Vasilevsky's future.
That's a pretty good point because, yeah, you're right. It seems like every series, he's the one guy of almost every other team in the playoffs. No one else really has a guy like him who's going to the Hall of Fame. Since the Panthers are out, there's no Bobrovsky. So he's like they'll have the edge in goalie, you would think, in every series that Tampa Bay plays in. And that's usually enough. But for some reason, maybe Montreal will be too much for him. And this will be kind of the beginning of the end of the championship window if it's already open in Tampa Bay, because those guys are all over 30 now. And now the defensemen are getting up near 40, Hedman, McDonough. So, yeah, this could be that tipping point where Tampa Bay might think about, geez, maybe we need to start kind of rebuilding here a little bit.
Any advantage behind the bench or a significant enough advantage behind the bench, John Cooper versus Marty St. Louis?
And you'd think, and coaching does rear its head in the playoffs, but again, it hasn't helped Tampa Bay the last 3 years. Now, I understand 2 of those years were against Florida, and I don't know if anybody was going to beat them. So I get it. That's kind of a difficult buzzsaw to get it thrown into, but still, again, 3 straight first-round losses for Tampa Bay. So it hasn't worked out yet.
How do you see Carolina and Ottawa shaping up? I mean, Carolina, I think, is that team that I'm just waiting for them year after year to come out and do something. I'm not sure this is going to be a very even series, but you tell me.
Yeah, I'm flying to Raleigh tomorrow, so I'm going to do the first 2 games of this series for ESPN. Very excited to do the first 2 of this playoff series play-by-play. And so I'm really going to be buckling down here. And yeah, they're pretty similar. It's what, 39 regulation wins for Carolina, 38 regulation wins for Ottawa. So they're pretty even right there. You're right. Carolina under Rod Brindamore has done nothing but make the playoffs. They normally win playoff rounds as well, not just show up, but they haven't been to the Stanley Cup final yet. And they got to think this is the year, right? No Panthers, no Maple Leafs. The Bruins barely got in. Like, this is our year. If we're ever going to do it, this is it. Now, it's basically the exact same team as last year. Remember, they won in 5 over the Capitals. They won in 5 over the Devils. And they got to the Panthers and lost in 5. So that was it. But again, no Panthers this year. And so they're basically the same team, except they add Nikolai Ehlers, which was a good add. He's the second best player on their team this year. In terms of scoring points. He had career highs in points and assists. So to add him, and then they have no Burns and no Orlov, they kind of replaced him with Keandre Miller and Nikishin, who's now a full-fledged second-year guy after getting a taste last year. So they're kind of the same team, just a little more Ehlers. Will that be enough to get them to the Stanley Cup Finals? Doesn't seem like Nikolai Ehlers would be a difference maker, right? But, Blake's older, Stankov is older, and Svechnikov had a pretty good postseason last year. Maybe he can take it to another level. Ottawa is going to bring Tkachuk. Tkachuk is going to cause mayhem in the crease. Carolina doesn't really have one of those bullies like him. So you're going to see him kind of muck it up, much like the Bruins will try to muck it up against the Sabres. So in the end, I would not be shocked if Ottawa won. They have, Batherson had a career year. Tkachuk is good. They have some decent depth up front. And maybe the goalie edge, if Omar can stay in the net and he's okay to play every other game, every other day, which you do in the playoffs. He's had some issues, obviously, down the stretch. So I'll take Carolina, but that's a hard-fought series to start for them.
I guess it's sort of the same thing with all the other series. Carolina, the young goalie had a phenom-type year, but, the ice is smaller, the pace is faster, the grind is harder in the playoffs. He's really sort of the unknown. You know what you're getting with Ottawa. You know pretty much what you're getting with Carolina outside of the goal, but there's a lot of pressure on that young fella, I think, to get the team through it, don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, they basically have 3 goalies, right? Because they have Kochetkov, who's now healthy. They kind of went with him last year. But, yeah, Freddie Anderson and Bussy were both good down the stretch. I think they'll start with Bussy probably. We'll see. They could go with the veteran and see how he does in game 1. And if they win, they throw him out there again. But, they're going to be home in game 1. So you think that would be the way and the game to play Bussy. So, yeah, you're right for sure. This guy, he was on waivers before the season. Any team could have had him. And had a remarkable year and looked pretty good against the Flyers there in that last game. So that is a question mark for sure.
Speaking of the Flyers, the last series in the East is the battle for the Keystone State, and we enjoy watching Tampa and Florida muck it up and brawl it up. These 2 teams have a genuine hatred for each other. This is, in theory, maybe Sid and Gino's sort of last go-round, big bite at the apple. They were a huge surprise. Teams, the smart guys were writing them off as a bottom 5 and a lottery pick, and somehow, they showed some old man strength and willed themselves into the playoffs. What's your take?
Yeah, I thought they were a lottery team. I did not expect 100 points, a 100-point season from the Penguins, basically. And to be second in their division, did not expect that. The coaching change clearly was something that was needed there after a long Mike Sullivan tenure. Everyone really blossomed. Erik Karlsson had the best year, maybe of his career all around. Just a remarkable year. Ben Kindle, the rookie, they didn't expect that kind of contribution. Anthony Mantha, they signed him to a one-year deal off a torn ACL, and he gets a career high in goals. Like, they didn't see that coming. Malkin was a point per game guy. Sid was Sid as usual. So yeah, they really surprised. And the Flyers, they were looked like they were just kind of treading water again. Maybe that's going to take another off season, but bam, suddenly Porter Martone, their first round pick, shows up from college. Bam, Tyson Forster shows up looking like a first line absolute power forward. Now they get two power forwards within a week, and suddenly it just has energized their whole team. It's like the Flyers have been the best team since the Olympic break, so they really had a big kick to the finish. Sometimes it's not the best team that wins the series. It's the hottest team. Now, they still might be the better team as well. They finished just on the Penguins' heels. So this is probably a coin flip. And who knows, maybe the Flyers with those two additions. And Dan Vladar might be the best goalie in the series. So if we go back to the goalie thing, who's got the better goalie? I think it would be the Flyers. Now, Stu Skinner has experience from his Edmonton Oiler run the last 2 years. But it might be a slight edge. I still think with Sid, he can probably match up against Trevor Zegras and shut down him. Zegras is now a center. So maybe the Penguins, with the way they play, with their speed and suffocating style of play, could that be enough? Again, I'm giving them a slight edge because of that to win a playoff series. I mean, just either one of these teams wins a playoff series. No one had that happening opening night. So either way is going to be good news for an organization that's going to be unexpectedly in the second round of the playoffs.
Okay, we're going to get to the good stuff now. The Western Conference and our Vegas Golden Knights against Utah.
Yeah.
We know how we feel.
Wait, you want to do that first, or let's do that last?
Okay, I guess we're doing that last.
We'll say that for that's the cheesecake.
Dallas and Minnesota.
Yeah, that's the war.
That's going to be, everybody's expecting this to be the series, and it probably will be one of the best, but you never know. I just really feel like Dallas has that pedigree, and they've got the good team, and I think that Dallas is going to win this series, and I don't think it's going to be as challenging as people think. That's my opinion. But John, what about you?
Yeah, they're a little beat up with, look like Rupe Hintz isn't going to play the first two games. That's a loss. Now, they're so deep. And Heiskanen's also a little banged up. Obviously, that's a big loss as well. But, you have Mikko Rantanen, Wyatt Johnson, a career year, Jason Robertson, they really do wave after wave. And, Minnesota's kind of top heavy with Boldy and Kaprizov. They don't have a lot of centers down the middle. Now, the Hintz injury helps in that regard, Minnesota, because they don't have to worry about him and matching up with him. So, and the goalies again, Jake Ottinger, he looks the part, right? He looks central casting, 6'4", wears nice suits, looks like a CEO that you'd want like an NFL quarterback almost, kind of a vibe, but it hasn't really worked out. He hasn't really won a big postseason, so he needs to do something. Quinn Hughes is electric. Kaprizov and Boldy, that's a big three-headed monster. If they have a monster series, which they're probably going to have, Minnesota's got a chance. But if they don't, you could be right. It could be Dallas in 6 for say. I can't imagine many of these series being too quick. The league is so tight now. I can't imagine any sweeps or any 5. There might be 1 5-game series, but that's about the limit for me.
Well, I think that you have Glenn Gullickson, who took over for Pete, and John Hines has an absolutely horrific playoff record as a head coach.
Yeah, hasn't won one yet.
yeah. Ofer is kind of where we were going with that little tidbit. I don't think that this is the year where he loses his playoff virginity. Boston they're deeper, right? They can go up and down. And like you said, Minnesota, I think, is just a little bit too top heavy. We have talked about it over and over that, you applaud Billy Guerin for going out and taking the shot and getting Hughes with absolutely no guarantee that he's going to stay past next season. And he certainly has changed them as a club since he got there. But I think that this is, Ottinger, like you said, hasn't really got there. But the Minnesota goalies haven't really proved much of anything either. So I think I agree. I think Dallas gets through this one, but I think it's a bruising series for sure. So we move on to the great unknown. We had hoped that all the decisions would be made by the time we got a chance to chat with you, John, but unfortunately we're in the mill. The Avs don't know who they're playing yet. Edmonton, Anaheim, and the Kings are sort of all in the mix. So let's start with the easy one. Between Edmonton, Anaheim, and the LA Kings, does anybody have anything for Colorado?
No, I think that's a quick 5-game series. That's the one that is a 5-game series. I think it's going to finish up. I think they're all going to win, and I think it's going to be Vegas, Edmonton, Anaheim, LA. So I think it's going to, let's assume it's LA, Colorado. So again, I think that's a 5-game series. Maybe LA squeeze it to 6, but no, that one, I think that one is pretty much a given in my mind. Colorado's my pick to win it all, I think, when it comes to a probability standpoint. That amazing start, they have been kind of, average good the last third of the season. So we'll see if that carries over. But I like Colorado a lot.
I do too. I mean, Colorado, you can never count them out. I've actually been saying for the last couple of years, I feel like it was going to be Colorado, but I know that's still all up in the air. But the only one left now we can get to, because I know you're tight on time, John, is the Golden Knights and Utah. Talk about that one.
Yeah, I mean, Utah is a stingy team. They play defensive hockey. They're a good goal prevention team, a top 10 team when it comes to preventing goals. And usually in the playoffs, that's the kind of team you want, right? If we have that would leave us with Edmonton and against Anaheim if they all take care of business, which I think they will. That's going to be a track meet. That's going to be fun. We might see some 7-6, late 80, early 90 hockey scores for Anaheim and Edmonton. Connor McDavid's going to get it done, I think, whether he plays the Kings or the Ducks. But I really like that series. But in terms of Vegas and Utah, Utah, they're not a big team. So Jack Eichel and company should be able to dictate the terms. I'm not a big fan of Vemelka, Utah's goalie. I do think that Vegas can score against him without a problem. They got Torts. He absolutely gave them the jump start they were looking for. I think they really believe now they're a Stanley Cup contender again. I think it was a double whammy. First, by firing Bruce Cassidy, the guy who brought you a Stanley Cup. That was shock number one. If they just would have named an assistant coach or something, it still would have been a big shock. But then you wheel out Torts from our studios here at ESPN. Like, it was a double whammy. It was like, it was a right, left, and a left hook. Bam, bam. It's like, whoa. So that woke up the entire organization. And clearly it did. Because look at this. 7 straight with at least a point. And so Torts has them back, I think. And I think if they stay healthy and get goaltending, then they'll take care of Utah in 6 games and really set up what I think will be the Vegas second-round matchup against Connor McDavid in Edmonton. I think that's where we're going. And then we'll see. They went up there to Edmonton right after Torts was hired a couple games in, and Edmonton was playing their best hockey of the year. They beat them 5-1 in Edmonton. That really, I think, is going to help Vegas going forward, kind of use that as that was no Leon Draisaitl, and he should be there for the playoffs. But I think Vegas is in a nice spot here to, like you said, reach the conference finals, and then hopefully Colorado, hopefully they get a little bit of resistance in round 1, but then round 2, whether it's Minnesota or Dallas, it's a nice 7-game series where maybe there's less physical toll for the Golden Knights and more for Colorado. Who knows, or maybe Dallas upsets them, and then Dallas is kind of worn down after trying to play Minnesota and Colorado back to back. So Vegas, they're like a sneaky pick for me of like getting to the Cup final.
So the team that won the pillow fight division, you think has a chance to sneak in and get to the big
believe
show?
That? Yeah, can you believe that? My Pillow, the Stanley Cup Finals, brought to you by My Pillow.
That guy went bankrupt, so he needs the money.
Yeah,
so
he does.
He could use some ad revenue.
Yeah, he could use a playoff share right now. Maybe they'll give him a playoff share for the Pillow fight. Trademark. He'll probably take him to court for trademark violation. But yeah, it's going to be very. That's what the playoffs.
The funny thing is we've got a chance to see Torts.
Yep.
We've got a chance to see Torts up close, for the last couple of weeks, and
right.
he's different. I mean, you got a chance. He was in the studio with you to really talk to him. He's like slow playing, right?
Yeah.
He says, I'm not really coaching them. I'm just trying to get them out of their heads and play north. And he's really kind of the I don't want to say ho-hum, but he's like the humble guy now. He's not really been hyper aggressive. The practices are much different here than they've ever been, and he seems to have reminded them that they're a really, really good hockey club, and seeing Rasmus Andersson, just seeing the defense just all of a sudden start filling up the stat sheet. This is a tale of two seasons. 74 games, they sort of wallowed in the muck and nobody knew what was going on. And like you said, shots across the bow, two big changes. And all of a sudden, the last 8 games, they look like a real threat.
He is like kind of a grand poobah right now, just kind of like, being the old wise man. And that was the vibe at the Olympics, right? That's what he was doing at the Olympics, just kind of sitting back and just being, look, I'll just smile and wave and let Mike Sullivan coach the team.
Thanks so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. And we'll be in touch soon.
Anytime.
All right, boys and girls, John Buccigross of ESPN. How's that for a little surprise? Playoff previews. We didn't think we were going to get him to make game predictions, but he did give you some insight that, hey, he's a national guy. He's the voice of hockey for the ESPN, right? Thanks to Sarina. She got him. She bagged the ESPN guy.
That's how I roll.
That's how you roll. So that's it. That's the quick preview episode. Thanks for watching. 488 subscribers. 12 more to go. The 500th wins the Mexican food and maybe the strip club experience. So hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate everything you do. We'll be back again soon.